From survival to scripture, Bear Grylls on faith and doubt. Alex O'Connor is actually having a conversation with Bear Grylls. And this recent video, I guess he did, there was a clip in this interview that we're going to react to, the broader context to get a better understanding, where a lot of Christians think Alex is about to become a Christian. Atheists are saying Alex is about to become a Christian. Now, I'm not the one making this up. Alex did a video, clearly is seeing it somehow, where it's feeding him this idea that he is becoming a Christian. He's either becoming a Christian because he's grifting, as many atheists are trying to say, or he is about to become a Christian because he's being wooed and the truth of Christianity is starting to tug at his heart. Neither seems to be true, and I don't believe either one of them is on point. I've been watching Alex for a long time now and reacting to his stuff and thinking, wow, he has some of the most sharp, obvious critiques at times against Christianity. It's very hard for me to see that be the case. However, I did make a comment about the clip that came from this video. We're going to react to the broader context where, he's in front of a star, and maybe there's a sense in which instead of being combative like a Christopher Hitchens, he's being kind of, enjoying talking Bible with someone. And by the way, I can do this too. And if you were a fly on the wall listening to that conversation, you probably know Derek's about to become a Christian. Whereas I'm more sympathetic into having those kind of conversations, as I'm clearly not convinced they're true in the literal historical sense. There might be some value in some of these ancient texts, but there's also a lot of not value, in my view, that only worked at its time. So if you're new here, subscribe. If you haven't already, hit the bell and hit all. It'll notify you every time we do these reactions. Like this video, share it out there. Let's make some noise, and let's get this movie started, this video started by Alex O'Connor.
Bear Grylls? Sybil?
That's an interesting name, Sybil. Like Sibylline oracles. With the Sybil was an ancient Greek idea. They had the oracles of Delphi and others. But the point is that what he named it after? Bear Grylls is the survivalist guy.
Welcome to the show.
I feel bad because it's taken about 15 minutes to get to this stage, mainly because of me. Not your team have been amazing. I've had all the family, dogs, and everyone coming to join, but I think we've basically relented, haven't we?
Yeah, I think it's great. I like the dog. I like the fire. You were teaching me about birchwood and what I'll ever need to do if I'm ever in a survival situation, how to start a fire.
Well, that's good. I kind of figured we're outside with we got Sybil to come and join us. We better have a fire lit, and then it's all good.
It's all very cozy, isn't it? It's all very cozy.
Well, I don't know. I was saying to you before, I find if I have to do chat shows where it's really in a studio, I find it all quite scary.
Yeah.
I find it quite intimidating. I get really nervous about them, but I do have to do them. If you like promoting a show in the States, part of my work, so I kind of go and do it. But this sort of thing is, first of all, love all you do. I think you're a brilliant man with a great brain and also a great heart. And I look at you as a truth seeker, which is wonderful. So for me, this is kind of
is that I have questions, right? Has Bear watched all of Alex's material? And what does he think about some of the more critical stuff Alex says? How does he take that? Clearly, most Christians, it seems, would be somewhat offended or clearly not fans of what he's saying, but he's a fan of Alex. So I wonder why that is.
And so to be outside, nice to have a fire, have the dogs. It's this feels a happier place, less scary place.
It's gorgeous. And you're not promoting a TV show at the moment. Yeah. You're promoting and discussing the greatest story ever told. You've retold the story of Jesus's life through the sort of first-person perspective of various people. I want to jump into it, but why this book? Why now?
I just want to say this. Just like the Quran is the greatest book ever written, Muslims will say, and so subjective that they have that kind of belief and interpretation. Christians might say that about Jesus. I think of the Odyssey. Christopher Nolan's about to do the Odyssey movie. I'm really hoping that doesn't flop. I hope it does well. I hope it's amazing. I hope it blows my expectations out of the water. But, when it comes to stories, I read the whole Bible, right? When I was younger as a teenager, just read it through from Genesis to Revelation. I'm in high school, King James Bible, super poetic. And I'll tell you this, I enjoyed the Old Testament stories far better than I enjoyed the New. Just being honest, I got bored when I got to the New Testament. I'm just talking about like aesthetically reading and enjoying the narrative, the story. Did not enjoy the Jesus story. And I'm a bona fide fundamentalist evangelical, but the stories in the Old Testament came to life for me in a way that the New Testament didn't. I'm just being real.
Some people, it might be a bit of a surprise. You know, you're the adventure guy, and here's this book about Jesus.
It's a little bit of a surprise for me as well, to be honest. But, you know, I don't know. Faith has been part of my life for a long time, just kind of quietly. Helped me so much over the years, you know, through so much. And I know I just had a really strong, weird feeling last year of like, clear the decks, clear the decks and write this book. And I just realized, like, first of all, so few people know the actual story of Christ. So few people have like read the Bible, you know, if you ask regular people. And yet the story, if it's true, is so life changing. And
if it's true. So you kind of wonder, does he realize he's in front of a guy who clearly doesn't believe it? And I think he is.
So beautiful. And I just thought nobody's ever done it, like told the actual story as a thriller. Short, accessible, easy to read, punchy, theologically accurate, but done as like a sort of, you know, as like a beautiful love story thriller. And I really just had that feeling of like, clear the decks and write the book. And I wrote it actually in a month in the jungle. I was with my son. We were filming another show either side of it. He kept thinking I was on drugs or something. He goes like, you're just writing all day and all night. But it's like, wrote it fast. But then it's been the hardest, but also the best thing I feel I've ever done. And I've said this a few times now, but I would give up every other kind of work accolade in my life to have done this. It's the thing actually I'm most proud of, because it's changing lives and it's touching hearts all across the world every day now. And it's only been out a few months. And
so he wrote a fiction about a fiction. And it's the fiction's doing wonderfully in terms of helping people in their lives. Okay, cool. Fictions are great and they can inspire people.
I think out of everything I've done, this is the thing I've had the strongest, warmest response from. And like, even just this morning, like message after message after message, when I sort of look at my phone, or a team send me things of like people from all cultures, all faiths,
right,
or non-faiths, just saying, mainly I had no idea of how incredible this story is. So really proud of it, you know. It's and I feel it's just beginning in a way.
Well, for those who don't know, what you've essentially done is taken the story of Jesus, which in the New Testament, we have our sort of 4 gospels. We've got these 4 accounts of Jesus's life, and they're told in the third person and quite sort of sparsely. You know, like I think, for example, of in the birth narratives where, or just after the birth narratives, where Jesus is sort of, he goes missing, right? Like his family, his mother and father suddenly notice that he's not there, and they search for him for 3 days, and they go and find him at the temple. And in the Gospels, it's sort of very much like, well, they noticed he was missing, they looked for 3 days, they found him in the temple, and there he was teaching. Whereas what you've done is you've taken stories like this and you've told them from a first-person perspective. So you start by assuming the personality of Mary, the mother of God, and you retell the story because, of course, if your child goes missing for 3 days, that's not something which it's easy to sort of fully depict in 3 short sentences. So you sort of try to expand upon that. But the obvious question is, like, how do you go about doing this? How do you go about taking a story where, like you say, you've got to be incredibly careful to be accurate, because you're telling and like, as you see it, the most important story that's ever been told. But you're kind of having to embellish it in a way. You're having to bring in emotions that aren't made explicit in the text. You're having to get inside of the mind of these characters and speak to these perspectives which are not in the scripture. So how do you approach that while being careful to keep it accurate?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's like, first of all, you're right. Yeah, the New Testament, if you just look at it, the story, the way it's written is so sparse.
Yeah.
You know, and every story of Jesus is like that example you said of him getting lost. You know, even through the crucifixion is like Jesus was taken to the place of the skull and crucified.
Yeah, right.
Done.
Yeah.
You know, that is it. And I suppose what I've done is expand that a little bit, say actually what that means. So, so rather than just saying he was taken to the place of the skull and crucified, I will say, the Roman soldier grabbed the iron bolt, knelt on Yeshua's, arm, drove it through, and the words mumbled from his mouth of "Father, forgive them, they don't know what they're doing." So just try and put context kind of to it, but at the same time be absolutely theologically kind of accurate. And the first thing we did was just take a time.
That's a bold statement. So some Christians will probably read this and completely dismiss or disagree with a lot of the claims he might make. Again, one of the problems recently with the well-known show that they have that they're caricaturing Jesus in is how much is this guy sticking to the actual Gospels to tell the story of Jesus. And I saw a meme floating around. I can't remember the name of the show. Maybe you can help me. But it's like a new show that is really high quality, modern, and all that in terms of a Jesus telling the gospel stories and whatnot. But the guy pretty much says in the meme that made this, you have to almost pretend the gospels don't exist and imagine the narrative being depicted here. So again, we're back at a fiction that's inspiring people, and a powerful fiction at that.
Line of okay, here we go. Because you got 4 accounts, and
exactly.
as the Gospels differ. As part of the sort of beauty of the authenticity of it is that they differ.
Mm-hmm. So the beauty of the authenticity of it. Disagree. It sounds like he's been listening to some of these what are they? The accidental coincidences that align each other amongst the Gospels. They know of each other. They're competing. It's that simple.
We first of all had to take the timeline and then pull out the kind of the actual one thing I didn't change a single word of is the words that Jesus spoke. So that was when I had that kind of feeling of clear the decks and write this book, the next feeling I had was but do not add a single comma to actually the words that Jesus speaks. So I use different translations, different versions for different, encounters, different scenes, but I don't change a single word that he says. What we are doing is setting the scene for each of those kind of times, he is speaking. So that was part of the challenge, but I kind of feel we've done it okay. We did a lot of work on it afterwards. I mean, I worked with a lot of theologians for this. So, I do kind of I actually feel this is no longer my book, actually. It's a genuine sort of feeling of it's outgrown me. Yeah. It has a life of its own now, but I'm really proud of the help I got. Andrew Ollerton was incredible. Dr. Andrew Ollerton, who's just super well-renowned theologian. I worked a lot with the Come and See Foundation in the States, who are behind things like The Chosen, the TV series.
That was the show I was looking at. I'm glad he mentioned it. The Chosen goes off on some tangents that are not anywhere in the Gospels. And a lot of historical stuff just completely wonky. But it can be an enjoyable show. The scenes and experiences can be really fantastic how they portray the show. So it's a fun watch, but it's a fun fiction, And
they had a whole team of theologians that really we had some pretty intense Zoom calls of, that's, you can't conjecture that. You got to rethink that. And it's so we really worked hard for that part. And that's why really they're the kind of being in many ways the actual heroes of all of this.
Well, The Chosen will be a comparison that surely comes up a lot here because, The Chosen, this TV show that serializes the life of Jesus, they have no choice but to put words in the mouth of Jesus.
Well, they have to go further because they're doing so much more, So they do create dialogue for Chosen. And actually, I think they, by their own admission, it's one of the things they get, criticism for. I think everything's arguable either way. I think they see.
What's funny is that scholars look at the New Testament and don't even think the red letters that, people go, Jesus said. Most of them do not think those are the actual words of Jesus. The critical scholars I'm talking about, they think the author put these words in the mouth of Jesus. Jesus never said these things in real life. So you got a problem. One layer, you have critical scholarship who's looking at the text and they're dissecting it as a science and saying, he didn't say those things. And by the way, these are atheists, okay, as they hate to use those. Oh, you atheists say. No, dude. Critical scholarship developed from Christians. Protestants developed this, and the science of critical thinking, critical scholarship on the Bible, the New Testament particularly, developed over time, and we've inherited that. So these Protestant Christians recognize problems with Jesus didn't even say these words. Then the next step is getting to Bear Grylls, who's trying to limit himself to what the Gospels say Jesus said, which he believes Jesus said every lick of it probably. He probably knows Jesus said more than that, but all we have are what the Gospels say. And then you have the chosen to go beyond that and fictionalize it to a whole different level and portray like hypotheticals and stuff. So it's really funny to see fiction on fiction on fiction here.
And I see it with the chosen as well. They just do a brilliant, brilliant job of pointing people towards the light and towards the nature and the character of Jesus.
So it's all about that. It does not matter if they're fictionalizing. It doesn't matter if they're making up the narrative. As long as they're pointing towards the goodness of Jesus, that's the light. That's the truth, the way.
But with this book, I really wanted to keep it really tight.
Yes.
So the only thing we're going to contextualize is this situation of Jesus, whether it's Jesus meeting this lady, this Samaritan lady at the well, the first time he reveals to anyone on earth his actual divinity. We're gonna set the scene for it and then let it.
Alex probably doesn't think he's showing his divinity, but either way,
play out.
Yeah, and one of the choices that you make there, because of course you tell the story through the first person perspective. You start with Mary, and then it's Thomas next, and then Simon, then John.
Yeah, you
then
got
Mary
a great.
Magdalene,
You got a good brain. I said this at the start. Well done.
That's just
it's
memory.
true.
But that second part, it's Thomas, right? It's through the eyes of Thomas that you see Jesus talking to the Samaritan lady at the well. And I suppose you have to make some interpretive choices here in that, like, in the gospel account, Jesus is at the well and he's speaking to the Samaritan lady, and then the disciples come and join him, but you've sort of taken Thomas and you've placed him there like a...
Well, I've
like
placed him as an observer.
Yeah.
So it doesn't mess with the scene. It doesn't mess up the dynamic, because...
That's kind of interesting. Because if you take the approach that I might take, right? I can't remember in John 4. I think it's in John 4. Did Jesus... Let me see if I can get my Bible. Because I'm curious to know if Jesus actually... I don't have my Bible on me. It's in the other room. I'm curious if Jesus is alone there with the woman. If the text seems to imply she's alone there, then how did they get this story? Well, he just told it to them after he met back up with them. Does it say Thomas is there? I don't know. I'd like to look at the Bible myself, but oh well. It's I'm not worried about it right now. The point is that oftentimes scholars will point out an interesting thing most people don't realize when they're reading the Gospels is an omniscient author, which makes you, the reader, omniscient in the narrative. It's a fiction that makes you there at the well so you can see it. But who really is telling it? And how do they know what Jesus said and was there when he wasn't there? For example, in the garden, when Jesus prayed and all of them were asleep, no one was awake. No one was there to hear Jesus pray, his final prayer to the Father. And if take this cup from me, if it be thy will, but, nonetheless, let your will be done. This kind of prayer that's in the garden. Then he wakes them up. No one heard it. No one saw it. Yet it's described. And the next episode, he doesn't have time to explain to the disciples. Right then, soldiers come in and arrest Jesus. So how did they know this? Who told, did he go to Pontius Pilate and say, hey, Pontius Pilate, make sure you let my friends know so to write this down in the story later. I know you're going to kill me. But listen, I was praying just before I got here. This is what I did. This is what I said. Make sure you let them know. I mean, no, it's an omniscient author. It's fiction.
It's a very intimate moment, really.
Yeah.
So things like that, you had to just require some thought and some planning on how to do it. But I felt that was kind of a nice way of doing it, because it's not messing with the scene or altering the scene, but it just gives a reason for him observing it. But I like Thomas in this. I think the book starts off very innocent with Mary.
Yeah.
As this young teenager, he's just been told you're going to give birth to the Almighty, the Son of the Almighty. I know we get so used to it, like with kids' nativity plays and stuff, but it's a pretty shocking revelation. And also it's pretty shocking if God's going to come to earth, to come out of wedlock, born out of wedlock, to somebody is, of such no social standing and such poverty. And so it starts very innocent. And as you say, it's kind of like even losing Jesus as that 12-year-old. It's like the panic of all of that. But then I want to go in harder with Thomas of like, it's going to take more than a miracle with some wine to change this heart.
Yeah.
Because I kind of feel like taking these 5 different perspectives in the book, it becomes all of our stories. Because all of us at times are the skeptic. All of us are the doubter. All of us are the betrayer. All of us are the arrogant. All of us are the nervous and scared.
Mm-hmm.
So this gets into a little bit of what Jordan Peterson, I think, is trying to get at, but does a terrible job often on explaining. You can find yourself in these fictions. You can find the meaning and value from the narratives this way. Sometimes we feel like Judas. Sometimes we are Judas. We betray. Sometimes we want to end it all. Sometimes we show compassion and love, and sometimes we doubt and we're skeptic. Like, yeah, and you can actually apply that to almost anything in your life and find these fictions to give you meaning. In the same way, I find the same thing with other myths, other stories. For me, greatest stories ever told, different ones, not Christian ones.
So I kind of wanted to have all of these perspectives because that is life, and it was also the reality of their experiences. Though the people that surrounded Jesus were all of those things. The one thing they weren't is very together or intellectual or brilliant. They were just regular young people. I mean, it's the other thing people forget. The average age of the disciples, 15 to 25. It's really shocking that for me. It was like, hold on, I'm so used to big paintings of Peter with a big beard sat on a rock, But they were kind of like, wow, what is going on?
Yeah.
And I kind of relate to that.
That's one of the reasons that.
So I'm already realizing I did a reaction before to a scene where it sounded like Alex was kind of catering to what Bear Grylls is saying. I had no context that they're talking about Bear Grylls' book, which is a fiction on the fiction of the Gospels, which are fictions. And, it's like, oh, okay. So he's playing into the kind of Bear Grylls thing, but Bear Grylls is expressing his opinions. And Alex is not there to contend or overly be critical. He's there to kind of talk about his book, why he made the choices, but also the inquisitive listener, if you will, might catch some of Alex's points and think deeper, like I did about the omniscient author thing with John chapter 4. If I had my Bible on me right now, I could open the website and do that, but I'm not going to waste my time. I was going to just read it there because it seems that's an omniscient author scene. No one is there with Jesus. The disciples, I think, went into town or something, or I can't remember 100%. Maybe they're among them. But there's examples of that.
The Chosen is so celebrated. I think what it does well is that so many pieces of Jesus media are about Jesus, whereas this is really about the disciples. It's the chosen. It's the chosen followers of Jesus. And you are sort of going along with them, encountering this character of Jesus, which is what this approach does as well. It puts you in that first-person perspective. But you've said that Thomas, you want to sort of represent different sides of everyone's personalities, and Thomas is the doubter. I heard you say on a different interview that sort of faith and doubt are two sides of the same coin. And of course, any Christian believer will go through periods of strength in faith and weakness in faith. And I suppose right now, especially with the book and the feedback, you're probably feeling pretty good about Christianity and the position in the world. But I wonder if you can talk us through.
Don't assume
whether that's true. And
well, I don't think it is true.
Where you're at.
I have many doubts. I really do. I have many moments of real struggle. I don't think it'd be right to say like I'm like super confident in my faith. I think I'm the shaky part of this. I really am. And I struggle with many things. And I've just learned that is okay. So when I say faith and doubt, two sides of the same coin, it's not like sort of 90-10, faith and a little bit of doubt, because, I think it's a myth that you find a faith and suddenly like it all comes together. I think for me, finding a faith was like that pilot light, boom, that happened. That light went on. And like, I was a teenager, it was like, I knew it, but nothing dramatic happened. But there was a light there, and that's never gone out. But like a gas flame, sometimes it goes up, and you have moments where like, I know, it's like I've just experienced, this is incredible. And the moments where it's like total madness. And I think actually this last year I've had really challenging moments of like, can it really be true?
I like this interview. I'm enjoying this. Can it really be true? I like Christians who are willing to say, you know, like they really wrestle with it, right? And I don't know what really is going on inside Bear Grylls here, but it's a question I ask. It's a sincere question based on all the research I've done, and there's so much reason to doubt that it actually happened. You got to go to faith. You have to just have faith. Like, we're talking blind faith. We're talking he who does not see yet still believes. Blessed is that person. Not Thomas, where he appears to you, but you got to go in faith. You don't see, yet you still believe. And I, really appreciate this. I can see where the direction this is going. This is the part 1 reaction, okay? We're already in part 1. I want to do the second follow-up here with Alex O'Connor and Bear Grylls and see where this goes and get the full broader context, because people have taken him out of context in several locations in his videos. But in the recent Bear Grylls clip on his more Alex O'Connor video, is he becoming a Christian? So he made a video having to respond to both sides. What do you think about this interview so far? I think Alex is doing what any good interview should do, especially if they're interviewing about a book. He's polite. He's not trying to be overly critical. And Bear Grylls himself is expressing his own doubts. And is it true? He's experienced things, but is it true? Because everyone has experiences all across every culture, every faith, every religion, and they all have claims. And a lot of them are mutually exclusive. So, ladies and gentlemen, what do you think about this so far? Comment down below. I want to see your comments. It helps our channel by you commenting, liking, subscribe, and check the bell so you're notified every time we react. And until next time, see you then.